To unpack this issue is constitutional lawyer and conservative activist Phyllis Schlafly. Phyllis, it's great to have you with us.
Great to be with you again.
It's our pleasure to have you. In an article you just wrote for the National Review, you say that we must limit immigration or conservative efforts for limited government will become irrelevant. Can you break this down for our viewers?
Well, that's because the big majority of the immigrants coming in do not share Republican principles of limited government, balanced budgets, cutting government back to size and what it ought to do. The new proposals, well, you know, with Obama and Carney praising it, that's about all you need to know. If they like it, it's certainly not going to be good for the conservative movement or for the grassroots or for the Republican Party.
Now, Phyllis, many members of the GOP right now are facing hotly contested midterm elections. You know, obviously this has an influence on their stance on immigration reform. How big of an issue do you think this will be in 2014?
Well, I think it'll be a big issue, and the members of Congress who take a position in favor of the Gang of Eight or of any bipartisan bill are going to lose, because the grassroots of this country want border enforcement first before we talk about anything else. And nobody's doing that. In fact, Senator Sessions issued a wonderful statement in which he said the so-called Republican principles that they hatched in secret at that Maryland hideaway are just the same old recycled talking points with the help of the same consultants and special interests. And we have two powerful lobbying groups that are pushing this so-called so-called immigration bill, and they are big business that wants the cheap labor, and they're the Democrats who want the votes. And if the Republicans give them what they want, they're finished.
Now, Phyllis, let's take a closer look at the plan that was released recently by House Speaker John Boehner, this framework for immigration reform. And the president seemed to be open to doing this maybe as a piecemeal approach. You know, talk to us about, you know, what you think about the viability of Boehner's plan.
Well, anything that Obama is for, I think the conservatives should be against, because Obama.
And some Democrats might say that's the problem. They might use that against Republicans. If that's going to be the case again, how should the GOP answer that claim by Democrats?
Well, because Obama's got his game plan. He wants to fundamentally transform our country. He wants to bring in hordes of new people, and they are mostly the low-wage people. And the biggest problem we have in our country is jobs. And we need jobs for Americans. We don't need to bring in more low-paid people from other countries to take the jobs that our Americans need.
Now, does it matter to you if it's called amnesty or a pathway to citizenship or whatever the term may be? If these folks came into this country illegally, they might not, they might have to get to the back of the line, but they're not going to be deported from the country. Does the way that we describe it, the way it's characterized, the verbiage that's used to characterize the immigration loophole or whatever that allows these 11 million folks to stay here in this country, is that okay with you at all, or is there any other option?
No, it's not okay, because they've broken our laws. We believe in being a government of laws, not of men. And if they let them stay, they have achieved what they wanted by breaking the law, which is residents and approved residents in this country. And we can't do that.
Now that said, Phyllis, there are 11 million of these folks in this country, and whether they have the legal right to vote or not, they do have an influence on our culture. You mentioned that many of these immigrants don't share the values of the Republican Party, but there has to be some concern, and we've seen this articulated from the RNC, that they want to be sympathetic to these folks. They don't want to basically turn their back on an entire generation or 11 million potential voters. What do you say to that?
Well, they are human beings, and we want to be polite and nice to them. But at the same time, we believe in being a government of laws. And the plain fact is that in this new report that I've put out, that all the polls show that they are coming from countries where they believe in big government. They don't believe in the conservative Republican view of limited government at all. They want government to be there to take care of them and solve their problems. And that's not the kind of country that we want, or which built us to the most prosperous, freest land in the world.
You know, we have states like North Carolina, states like Georgia, and even people are talking about states like Texas turning maybe perhaps purple because of the immigrant population. Is that a concern for you?
Well, of course it is.
And you know, that's obviously, you know, do you admit that's happening, and how should the GOP address that?
Well, we shouldn't keep letting people in who don't share American views. You know, when you become a citizen, you have to take an oath that you swear to get rid of all allegiance to any former king, potentate, structure of any other country, and adopt the American system. And that's what we want. But all the polls show that they don't adopt conservative views when they get here. They took one poll shows that while the big majority of Americans who are native-born believe the schools should teach that we love America and it's great to be an American, but the new ones coming in don't believe that at all, and they think the United Nations or international law should be of higher ranking than our Constitution.
Now, going back to Speaker Boehner's framework, you know, that does include provisions to require things like English classes and civics classes. Is that not enough for you?
No, it's not, because it's all after they're given legal residency. And when you give them all the goodies first and then say this is what you're supposed to do, but chances are it's not going to happen. We all saw on TV George Bush signing the Secure Fence Act. He called a photo op for that, and we never got it. And the American people simply do not believe that the border will close if you give them legal residency in this country first, if you give them amnesty.
Now, aside from Boehner, who we're seeing right here, there are a couple conservatives who have, you know, heard a lot of criticism coming from the far right wing of the Republican Party, and I'm talking about Marco Rubio, who helped write the Gang of Eight immigration bill, and Paul Ryan, who has also come out, you know, not as overtly supporting the immigration bill as Rubio, but has talked about its importance a lot. But aside from those two, is there anybody else on the Republican side who has really disappointed you about the way they've handled this debate?
No, I think it's the same old fight of the establishment against the grassroots. And Rubio and Ryan were both considered to be national contenders to be on the national ticket, but they've blown their chance. They will never be.
And so this is the issue, in your opinion, and I would assume it's the same opinion that's shared by a lot of conservatives. You feel like, based on the way Rubio and Ryan have played their hands on immigration, they've ruined any shot at the White House.
That's correct. They have ruined any shot at the White House. Because I think a lot of people just simply don't realize how strongly the grassroots feel about this. They just don't think we should give the illegals what they really were after when they broke our laws, which is permanent residency in this country.
And you mentioned Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama. He's been one of the biggest opponents of the plan so far. We know Steve Stockman from Texas has also been very vocal about this. Talk to us on the flip side from Rubio and Ryan, who you think are the loudest and best voices to represent the GOP in this debate at this point.
Senator Sessions has been the best voice on this whole issue. He's been informed. He's been consistent. He's told us that what Boehner has put forth is the same old stuff that we've heard before and we don't believe. And he set out a plan for how to treat with the illegals who are here and the ones who want to come in. And I think everything Sessions says is valuable and helpful, and we ought to pay attention.
And, you know, Phyllis, how do you see this playing out? I heard some comments this morning from some members of Congress who still feel like that there is a chance that immigration reform is going to get done even before the August recess this year. Give us your percentage. What do you think? What are the odds here of anything happening on immigration reform?
Well, I think the odds are very much against anything happening in this session. Based on past experience, they might try it and make a big push in the lame duck session, where they do a lot of damage. That's, you know, when they pass the World Trade Organization. It's given us all kinds of trouble. When they have people voting who've already been defeated in the election. And I think the most important thing for the grassroots to do is to make sure that we elect a new crop of senators so we can stand up to what Obama and Carney are telling us to do.
All right, well, there's some very interesting Senate races going on right now, one in Kentucky one in Georgia as well. Phyllis, tell us what GOP Senate primary you're watching most closely at this point.
Well, I would say Louisiana and North Carolina and Alaska are probably maybe the closest and tightest races. And we're going to be helping all the people who are Republicans and who will vote no on amnesty.
All right. Well, there was also a report out yesterday that Ted Cruz may have agreed not to campaign against some incumbent members of the Senate, some incumbent Republican senators. Politico characterized this as Ted Cruz making nice. What's your take on it?
Well, every one of these cases is a separate decision. I'm not going to tell Ted Cruz what to do, but he is certainly one of the popular figures at the present time, and I think he's been very outspoken on the immigration issue. And who he chooses to campaign for, well, make that decision one by one.
All right. Thanks a lot for being with us. Phyllis Schlafly, founder
and
president.
Go to eagleforum.org for
That's
more
right.
info.
I was just about to get that in there. Go to eagleforum.org. We'll have you back soon. Always a pleasure having you here with us.